It's time for the Creator Town Hall here on Studio Live. Today, in this week's episode, we're talking about all things copyright claims, content ID, strikes, YouTube, TikTok, all of the things that you need to navigate when it comes to copyright. And the show, as always, is brought to you by our wonderful friends over at Bandlab. Yeah, if you're looking for a platform that you can use on your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device, your Mac, your PC, and you can create, mix, master, and share your music, Bandlab got you covered. We'll talk a little more about Bandlab later in the show because they've got some copyright-free loops and samples in there as well, which you're definitely going to want to check out if you are concerned about copyright. And look, who isn't? These days, it is hard to navigate the murky waters of what is right, what is wrong, what's good, what's bad. So that's what we're going to cover in this video here today. First and foremost, let's cover the caveats here. I am not an expert in copyright. The copyright things are changing all the time, so I'm not going to know all the latest up-to-date information, and I'm definitely not a copyright lawyer. So please take everything I say with a grain, a shaker, or maybe like a truckload of salt. And if you've got other information that's maybe contradictory to what I say, that's what the comment section's for. You can ask your questions down there. We've got a lot of very knowledgeable folks in this community. So I'm not going to know everything. I don't have all the answers, but you guys can definitely be part of the conversation down in the comments section below. But let's start with the basics. What is copyright? Wow. So when it comes to music, copyright is the process of saying, this is a song that I wrote, these are the words, this is the music, and I own this. I am therefore the only one who gets to reproduce this music, and I can then go and, collect royalties and make money from the music that I create. Now, here in Australia and in the UK and in a lot of jurisdictions, you own the copyright as soon as you write a song. So I write a song, I open up Bandlab here, and I write myself a song. As soon as I've written that, that is it. I own the copyright of that. But it does come down to proving your copyright, yeah? And the number one tip for this, and what I do with copyright, is to hide in plain sight. So the reason I have this channel, the reason I share all my music online is that, yes, you could say, what if someone steals your stuff? But the thing is, when you write a song online or when you share something online, it's time-stamped as you. If someone comes along at a later date and they say, actually, this is me, guess what? You've got the earlier timestamp. So a lot of it is about the time. It's like the old way. Back in the days, we used to say, oh, what you do see is you put a cassette in an envelope, and then you put a stamp on it, and you send it to yourself, and then it's going to have the time and date stamped on that stamp, leave it sealed, and then if anyone comes at you, you can just open that up and give it to the judge, and the judge will go, boom, order in the court in favor of Pete Johns. It doesn't quite work exactly that way, and hasn't done in the past. But it's a good idea to have some way of proving. Think in terms of that. There are formalized copyright processes. So for folks in the US, there's the US Copyright Office. So you can actually fill in a form. It's a really boring looking form. Thankfully, I don't live in the US, so I've never had to fill one in, but it doesn't look like a good time. But if you want to do it, you can. And apparently you can do multiple songs. So if you're going to say release an album and you're really concerned about copyright and you live in the US, maybe you want to register it for copyright. And in fact, that's the next topic here. How do you copyright your music? And that's the main way in the US. Different rules in different parts of the world. So really, go to your Google. Go to your Google and search, how do I copyright a song in Germany, Canada, the Ukraine, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you happen to be in the world. And that will give you the information. My personal opinion on this stuff, I don't copyright my music. And some people might say, well, you're leaving yourself vulnerable there, Johns. You're open up to all sorts of issues in the future. What if someone steals one of your songs? What if Yeah, look, there's a lot of what ifs. There is so much music being created in the world these days that I don't feel that that's the biggest risk. And I don't feel that it's worthwhile spending a lot of my time worrying and doing things to try and avoid potential situations like that. Is that going to come back to bite me in the bum in the future? Maybe. But so far, so good. And again, hiding in plain sight as I do, to me, is the best overall option because it just means that I write songs literally here on the show. It will be very difficult for someone to do that because, say, in Songtember, which is coming up soon here in 2022, Every September we do a song in a month challenge, and I actually write. You can see me going through the process of writing and arranging and recording and mixing and mastering and releasing a song, and I do that all out in the public eye. Don't mean that you have to do all of that, but maybe a few YouTube videos, even if you leave them unlisted or private, a YouTube video that you just have as a private video, it's not going to, again, you're not going to be able to say, judge, rule in favor of me because I've got this one video, but just a video of you playing your song or a video of the song itself, it can help. Or upload to SoundCloud or upload to slaps.com or upload to Bandlab, which is our wonderful sponsors of this show, because you can actually upload your songs and share them using Bandlab, and then it will give you a timestamp. It'll say, Pete Johns uploaded this song on the date today, which is the 22nd of July or the 21st, wherever you are in the world. It's weird. We're live to tape here today. So even though you may be watching this as a live premiere video or you may be watching the replay, I'm recording it a couple of days in advance because technology. That's why. There's a related thing related to copyright, and that is a PRO. So don't get yourself confused here. You can register with a PRO, which is a performing rights or performance rights organization, and there's different ones in different parts of the world. In the US, it's ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. In the UK, it's PRS. Here in Australia, it's APRA, AMCOS. And what you can do with a PRO is actually register your songs with them. But that's not covering, that's not copyright, and that's not streaming, and that's not collecting royalties for Spotify and whatnot. You need to distribute your music to do that. What that is when you play your music live, when a radio station plays your music, when someone else plays your music, that's what's going to happen. They're going to recoup on your behalf any royalties, any performance rights royalties. I'm not an expert in this by any stretch, so again, go to your Googles, talk to your local folks that know more about this in your particular area, and find out what you need to do if you want to try and recoup some royalties from your performance rights, especially if you're playing live a lot, especially if you're expecting some radio airplay and the like. It can be a good idea to do that as well. Basically putting your eggs in a lot of different baskets, yeah? So if you were in the US and you wanted to be super safe, you would register with BMI, ASCAP, CSAC. You would register with the US Copyright Office. You would distribute your songs using someone like DistroKid, where you can distribute to all of the different platforms all around the world. And you might even add something called YouTube Content ID, which is a teaser, because we're going to talk all about YouTube Content ID a little bit later. I've actually put together a resource for you. Yeah, because I'm just a kind and caring kind of guy. So you can actually jump over to studiolivetoday.com/copyright, because I've talked about this a bunch of times, and I've got 5 separate videos here already that I've collated. This video will go onto that list as well, and I'm going to start putting together some resources. So this is where you folks can start coming into this. If you've got resources that you use related to copyright, drop them in the comments of this video, and hey, I'll add them, because this can be a community repository of all of the cool copyright information that can help folks like you and me navigate these very murky waters when it comes to copyright. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an introduction into what this whole copyright thing is all about. And really, why is it there? Why do we have copyright? Well, it's to protect you. If you're a musician, if you're a creator, if you're an artist, copyright's not a 4-letter word. Copyright actually means that you get to own what you create, and then you get to decide who uses it and how. And that's a good thing. As much as a lot of people think copyright's bad because of the way it's managed on different platforms, and we'll get to that because it's not managed well in a lot of platforms, it is actually a good thing fundamentally. Can it be abused like everything else in the world? Yes, but it's a good thing fundamentally to have in place. All right, let's rip off the Band-Aid. Let's talk about YouTube. Because I'm here on YouTube, I share these videos on YouTube. I do share them on other platforms as well, but YouTube is my main place. StudioLiveToday.com is mainly about sharing videos on YouTube. So YouTube has a thing called YouTube Content ID. Here's the deal. Back in the before time, in the long, long ago, YouTube just let anyone upload everything. They got themselves into a little bit of trouble because places like the RIAA, heard of them? Remember Napster? Yeah. The Recording Industry Association of America, and the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America. Both of those groups said to YouTube, you cannot allow people to upload our movies, our TV shows, and our music, because they are copyrighted and you do not own the copyright, and we are going to sue you. So YouTube very quickly thought, well, okay, we need to do something about this. So they developed a system called YouTube Content ID. And what this means is that the motion picture creators, the music creators, the music labels, and even you as an independent artist can actually add Content ID, which means that you provide your songs, you provide your videos, you provide your data to YouTube and say, this is mine. YouTube then have funky algorithms that scrape through all that create a profile of that song or that piece of video. And then when anyone else uses that, bing, it says, guess what? There's a copyright claim on your video. You've used someone else's song. You've used someone else's video. If you've had these before, you know what they are like. And we'll go into probably too much detail in just a moment so that you can find out what it's all about. I'm even going to take you behind the scenes of my channel because I get a lot of these. I do a show every week called Your Music Live. So you can only imagine how many YouTube content claims I get through YouTube Content ID. It's a lot. So how is this relevant for you as a musician? Well, there's two ways that it's going to be. One is navigating YouTube Content ID if you are using other people's music. So if you are doing a blog or a vlog, probably a vlog because it's video, if you're doing a vlog and you're playing a Blink-182 track in the background, the YouTube Content ID system is going to pick that up and it's going to add a copyright claim. Now, the artist or the labels can choose whether they want it to be a copyright claim or a copyright strike. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Basically, the more you use of the original recording, and especially particular artists and particular labels, the more likely you are to get a copyright strike. For the most part, if you're using, say, 30 seconds of a song, 30 seconds of a 30 Seconds to Mars song, maybe, 30 seconds of a song in the background, you'll get a copyright claim, which means that you can't monetize that video. And if you do monetize your video, and we'll talk about monetization in the YouTube Partner Program in a little bit, if you have a monetized video, then you don't get any of that revenue. All the revenue generated by that video then goes to the original creator or creators. So for instance, I do a show called Your Music Live. I get a lot of copyright claims. And again, I'll show you all of these in just a moment. I'll take you behind the scenes. I get a lot of copyright claims. And that means that say if I play 40 songs, which is about how many songs I play on a regular show. If I play 40 songs and say 5 of them have registered for YouTube Content ID, then I'm going to get 5 copyright claims. And that means that 5 different people will get a split of any money made by that video. Now, that's only relevant if I've got a monetized YouTube channel. I do. Chances are many of you don't. So here's the other thing to think about. If you've got a video, if you're creating videos and you're getting copyright claims, it really doesn't matter that much. If you're not making money from the video, it doesn't actually matter. Copyright strikes do matter, claims, not so much. But you don't want to get a whole bunch, especially if you do plan on monetizing your channel in the future. It can be a slippery slope. The other thing that can happen is that copyright claims can be post-dated. So because I do these shows every week where I play other people's music, I get these every week where a show I did a year ago, someone has added Content ID to a song since I played it, and then I get a copyright claim down the track. So don't think that just because you don't get this automatic copyright claim immediately, that you're never going to. And that's a serious thing, because if you're using a bunch of music in your videos, you might be ticking along thinking everything's great, and then suddenly that one piece of music, copyrighted music that you've used over and over again, has Content ID added, boom, you get a bunch of copyright claims. So we will talk about that. There is, of course, an upside to this, which is that you can add Content ID to your music. Now, this particular video is brought to you by Bandlab, but another sponsor of the channel and a very cool place to release your music is DistroKid. So I use DistroKid to release my music, and pretty much every other distributor gives you these options as well. If you come in here to DistroKid, and if we hit the upload button, I'm just going to correct this. I didn't spell music correctly, and that's going to bug me, and someone will pick me up on it. So let's get rid of the music and put music there. Right, so if you're uploading a song, you come in here to DistroKid, you put in all your details, you get it all good to go. Right down the bottom here, there's some added extras. So YouTube Content ID, $4.95 per year plus 20% of the YouTube ad revenue from matches we detect. Get notified and paid if your music is ever used in any YouTube videos. We'll add this single to YouTube Content ID database and continually scan for matches. When your music is detected in any YouTube video, you'll be notified and ad revenue will automatically go to you instead of the person who uploaded the video. And then there's YouTube's video about Content ID that you can check out there, and I'll leave you to go and explore that in your own time. So what does that mean for you as an artist? It means that you can actually upload a song, and then for an extra $5 a year, $4.95, you can have it added to this Content ID database. So that means if you do that on your song, and then you say, Pete, can you play my single on your music live? And I say, yeah, sure, and we spin it. I will get a copyright claim, and we'll show you what those look like in just a moment. So I'll get a copyright claim, and you will get the revenue from that video. Now, before you rub your hands together and go beautiful and think of images of you as Scrooge McDuck jumping into a pile of coins, which always looked really painful just quietly. Am I the only one there? Like, I don't really want to dive into a pile of coins. Sounds really painful. So before you actually get too excited, think about how much is made from a video. Now, it varies, so you're not going to know, but in simplest terms, you would need to have your song used on a monetized video on a large channel that's getting at least in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views on that video before you start going to make any kind of folding money. Because the amount of revenue that is generated through ads through YouTube is quite low. Similar to streaming revenue when you release your music, revenue through YouTube is pretty low, and it's all about the volume. So if Mr. Beast grabs your song and he uses it in a video that gets 10 million views, sure, you're probably going to pocket yourself $1,000 or so. But if Pete Johns uses it on his Your Music Live show, which gets 1,000 to 2,000 views, hate to break it to you, but you're probably going to get enough to maybe buy a hash brown at McDonald's or something significantly small. So it's not going to be a lot. So to pay that $5 a year for your song to be added to the database, I don't know many artists, especially independent artists, and don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, I don't know many independent artists who actually make enough money through YouTube Content ID to recoup that. Now, if you've got a really popular viral song and everyone's using it and you're getting a bunch through volume of these monetized channels using it, maybe. But more often than not, it's just going to be other people that are using on their videos that aren't monetized anyway. Remember, keep that in mind. If the channel using it is not monetized, guess what? You know what 100% of zero is? Yeah, I didn't do great in maths either, but it's not much. So if that video is not generating revenue because the YouTube channel is not part of the YouTube partner program, guess how much you're going to make out of that? So I generally say, especially when you're starting out, especially for independent artists, don't pay it. Don't bother adding your songs to YouTube Content ID. Very rarely are you going to make enough back to justify how much you're going to spend. And let's talk a little bit about the YouTube Partner Program. So what is it and what does that mean? So the YouTube Partner Program has been around for many years now. There is a gateway to apply for it, which is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time in the last 12-month period, in a rolling 12 months. So you need to have a significantly large channel that is going to be generating enough views or enough watch time to be able to apply for the YouTube Partner Program. If you are not part of that partner program, Content ID still will generate copyright claims, but it won't actually have significant issue on your channel. You'll still get notified every time, and we'll look at what those look like in a moment on my channel, but it won't actually have a problem. Whereas if you've got a monetized channel, so a channel like mine, where I have been monetized for some time, then yeah, if I wanted to add ads to a YouTube video, but I'm using copyrighted music, I don't make any money. Any revenue generated by those ads goes back to the original creator, which is kind of cool. Think about the before time. We didn't have any of this. So it would just be taken down. There was no way for me to put up any videos or even cover videos. And we'll talk cover songs in a moment too. I know some of you have been like, Johns, what about cover songs? How does that work? Because I'm not using copyrighted material. I'm just covering my favorite artist. They work in a similar way, but a little different. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So before we dive into copyright claims and I show you what these things look like in the back end, let's talk a little bit about Bandlab, because they are kind enough to sponsor this show. And as I mentioned at the front, Bandlab is a fantastic platform. You can use it on your Mac, your PC, your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device. And in fact, I've just started using it on my iPod Touch. So I've always got this iPod Touch. It's a little thin thing in my pocket all the time. This is like my ideas machine now. I just take my iPod Touch with me and I've always got access to all of my Bandlab projects. And the cool thing about Bandlab is it stores everything in the cloud. So you can jump in here. If we just exit out of this project, all of these projects that I have here that I've got in my Bandlab, they all go with me everywhere. So if we just jump out of here and we go to my view all my projects, all of these project files, every time I upload, every time I change something, it uploads a new copy of that, and then that's available. So any changes I make, if I jump into this, a test that I did from last week's show, if I jump into this one, I can actually come in here and make some changes here on my Mac right now, live while we're doing this show, and then those changes will re-upload to the cloud. It's all stored on Bandlab's end, and then I can actually come in on my iPod Touch while I'm out walking around today and make all the changes that I want. The other thing that I wanted to let you know about that's super cool here is, on the topic of copyright, Bandlab has a heap of copyright-free music. So they've got loops, they've got samples, they've got great drums, they've got excellent guitars, they've got vocal samples, a whole lot more in here. So to access those, if we, let's come in here and create ourselves a new track. We hit the create button up here. To use these, jump into the Bandlab sounds. I won't show you a heap of them here now, but you can scroll through here and there are pack after pack of royalty-free samples that you can use in here. Check this out. Acoustic guitars. Like, acoustic guitars are some of the hardest samples to find. Definitely hard to find good quality samples of those. But if we come in here, if I've got my audio up, how cool is that? Like an acoustic guitar rhythm scrapey scrum. Like, let's take a listen to, you know, a G minor. Pretty cool, yeah? And all you need to do is just grab these and drag them into your project, and you can start building out. It'll even tell you, yeah, this is G minor. You want to set it to G minor? You set it to G minor. It beat matches. It does all of that for you. So a very cool way to use these. Now, I'll talk to this a little bit more later. The key thing here is don't use just one sample at a time. You know how I talked about Content ID? Let's just say I had a song that started with just this. Started with just that guitar sample. The problem there is, what if someone else had started the song with just that guitar sample for the first 10 seconds of their song, and then they put Content ID on it? And then I do exactly the same thing, and then I upload that to YouTube. Well, what's going to happen? It's going to get a copyright claim. So how do you avoid that? Do a few things. Add different samples. Don't ever use one sample. Even if it's a free sample, even if you've got 100% rights to use it, it's in GarageBand, it's in Bandlab, it's somewhere, don't use just one sample at a time. The other thing you can do is change it up. Reverse your sample. Chop your samples up. Change the key. Change the tempo. Make it your own. The biggest, quickest way to copyright challenges is to use just one loop or one sample. So, hey, if I play this too much, this video itself make it a copyright claim because someone may have used that free sample as a start of their song. But we do thank Bandlab. They are super cool. Use the link up there or down in the description. Jump over to Bandlab and join for free. It is free. People say to me, how do Bandlab provide all this for free? Well, Bandlab have a whole suite of different things they do. They have the PC version, Cakewalk. They do a whole bunch of other online things. So the Bandlab platform itself is just their kind of gift to independent creators, and it gives them a way to get folks into the Bandlab ecosystem. And once you're in there, like me, you're going to be really enjoying it. Let's get back to copyright, right? We're going to talk about copyright claims. So again, I won't claim to be an expert, but what I do know is that I get myself a lot of copyright claims. So we're going to jump in here. I'm going to take you behind the scenes into my YouTube dashboard for some of my my live shows, so you can actually see what goes on with these. So I haven't actually pre-planned this, so hopefully I get some copyright claims on these. Yeah, I do. So let's jump on over here. You can see here, I've got copyright claims on a lot of the shows that I do, and there's two different types that I get here. You can see here, this video cannot be monetized because it's got a copyright claim on it. This video, however, says ad revenue is being shared with other copyright owners, and we'll talk about that in a moment because yes, those are cover songs. So we'll talk about that one. It's slightly different. But you can see here, it says, your video is ineligible for monetization due to a copyright claim. Review details and dispute the claim if you believe that this is an error. Revenue is held separately until a dispute is resolved. So what that's all saying is, hey, you got a copyright claim. You can dispute it because guess what? It's an automated system. Sometimes it doesn't work. Or sometimes folks can do manual claims. And if folks do a manual claim, sometimes they do that when they don't exactly have a reason to do that. So you do need to be aware of that, and you do need to make sure that, you check your videos. And sometimes you'll get an incorrect one, you dispute it, you got to be really sure, because guess what? If you dispute it and it's found that, no, you did actually use that music, your claim becomes a strike. And you don't want a copyright strike, trust me. So let's click this See Details button. This should drop us into some information about this. Here it is. So you can see here that on this particular video, I've only had 3. So I did play about 40 songs, and I got 3 claims. I got claims from this artist, and this artist. The claim type is audio claim, because it's music, of course. And it says, video cannot be monetized, add revenue paid to the copyright owner. So again, because this video's had about 1,000 views, again, the CPM, or the cents per mille, which means how much you get paid per 1,000 views, varies over time, but it's going to be around, usually around the sort of $2 up to $10, maybe $20 for a really good video. So this whole video, maybe you'll get $5 for 1,000 views, and it's going to be split 3 ways. So when I said before that whole $4.99 thing, yeah, so if there's ads running on this video and it makes $5 and it's split 3 ways, it doesn't split up that well, does it? $1.33, $1.66, something like that. So you would need to do that a lot of times to pay for your copyright content ID. Sometimes, folks, some distributors actually include it within the package. So if we jump in here, you can see this one was distributed by CD Baby. They have packages that include Content ID. This one here, also CD Baby, and last one is TuneCore. So CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, they are all just different distributors, and they all have different ways of setting up your Content ID. As I said before, and as you saw at the start, DistroKid, it's an additional fee. Some distributors, you just pay for the whole package, and it includes everything. You can usually opt out of it though, and it would be my preference, because the thing is, I play songs because that show is a sponsored show. If I needed to monetize that show, I couldn't play any songs that had Content ID, because I wouldn't be able to monetize that show. So you do need to be careful, because if you want your song played in as many places as possible, you may want to reconsider whether you add Content ID to your songs, because you want to make sure that you can get played as well as paid. There you go. I need to write that one down. Played and paid. All right, let's move on, because you may be asking, that's all fine, Johns, for using copyrighted material. I don't use anyone else's copyrighted song. I don't have a Your Music live show where I play other people's music every week, and most of you don't. So what about cover songs? So cover songs work in a similar but slightly different way. Most artists, when they put their music up there, they say, because they can specify this through the label when they actually put it up there. They say this song can, if this song is used, it'll either generate a takedown notice or a copyright strike if they want to be really aggressive, or for the most part, a copyright claim. Just like the 3 that you just saw on that recent show, it'll add a copyright claim through Content ID. They also at the same time say, but if someone covers this song, so if YouTube detects the melody of this song, or it detects the audio, but it's not the original audio, it will detect it as a cover song. And that is different, because that allows you to do revenue sharing, which means it will automatically give, and this is actually really cool, because before this, if I wanted to upload a cover song to YouTube, I would have to obtain a cover license, which is both expensive, complicated, and time consuming. That's 3 things. Both. It is really hard to do. We'll talk a little bit about that, because you can release a cover song too. But if you're just putting a cover song onto YouTube, so for instance, let's go back to the example, shall we? Because I just recently, you saw it just before, over here, I just recently did a live show. So I did this one here. That was my Your Music live show. This was my happy hour show. And you can see here the difference is, instead of ineligible, it says sharing. Still got a copyright claim. So if we go there, we can now go in and see the details. So what this is now going to show is all of the copyright claims I got for this show. So I played Happy Together, I played I'm a Believer, I played Puff the Magic Dragon, I played Sloop John B. All of these songs, Hello Mary Lou, Mrs. Robinson, all of these songs are identified as cover songs. But the good news is, it's going to give me revenue for sharing. So you might be wondering, if you've ever thought to yourself, how on earth are there these channels that all they do is cover versions of other people's songs? How is that fair? How are they not getting pinged for copyright all the time? Guess what? They are. and they're making significantly less than if they were playing their original music, but they're going to make it up in volume. So the difference is if I play an original song and I get 1,000 streams and I've got a monetized channel, I might make that $5. If I play a cover song and get 1,000 streams, I might only make $2 because it's going to pay a chunk of that to the original artist that I'm covering. Got it? Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. It's one of those complex things, but when you break it down, it's actually pretty straightforward. So what a lot of people do is these cover artists that are covering songs, if they're getting 10,000, 100,000, million views, well, they're making it up in volume. So it's kind of win-win, really, in terms of that, because the original artist is getting paid for allowing their song to be covered and not just, issuing a takedown notice. And the other artist that's performing their song is also getting paid. They're just both getting paid a little bit less. That's a good thing in my book. So cover songs, that's the way they work. You're still going to get a content ID claim, but yeah, you don't have to worry so much about it because it's not going to take your revenue. And again, keep in mind, if you are not part of the YouTube partner program, if you don't have a monetized channel, it doesn't matter because you're not getting monetized anyway. So whether you get a copyright claim for using original audio or you get a copyright claim for covers, it really makes no difference to you unless you're planning to make your channel monetized in the future. So do keep that in mind. What about cover licenses then? So if that's the case for YouTube, is that the case for everything? Well, no. It's very different in different parts of the ecosystem. So if you want to actually release your own cover song, and we'll use DistroKid again, because again, they're sponsors of the channel. I use them to release my music. So if we jump over to DistroKid, this is that release again. If we actually go in here and we say this is actually a cover song, I've just got to find the spot where it is. Another artist wrote it. It's a cover song. There we go. So we click on that one. Cover songs are okay. Here it is. So you can actually cover songs. For DistroKid, it is $12 per year, $1 per month, billed $12 for the year. And that obtains the cover license. So why would you do that? Well, to do it yourself manually is a lot of effort again. And you can do it manually, you can negotiate deals, you can do things like that. But if you're covering a song, you don't want to have to go to the effort of finding the artist, finding the publisher and the producer, negotiating the license and paying for the license and then providing that license to your distributor. A lot of distributors will just let you do that and cover a song. Now, there's different things to do with sampling and remixes. That's a bit more complex. So go in there and read all of that. So DistroKid have all this information, and I've got a DistroKid FAQ at studiolivetoday.com/DistroKid. So do consider that. And again, it's pretty expensive. It's going to be $12 a year to actually release your cover song. So you can do it, and you can obtain a cover license. And of course, you can do it separately as well. So you don't have to go through that system. But if you don't, it's a lot more complicated. So I would recommend that if you're releasing a cover song, do it that way. Now, you don't need a cover license just to put a cover version on YouTube or to put it on Facebook or Twitch or Twitter or TikTok. We'll talk about that in a moment. But if you want your cover song to be available on those platforms, so if you want it to be one of the songs available on TikTok, or if you want it to be on your artist channel on YouTube, or you want it to be on Spotify or Apple Music, then yes, you do need to go through that process of obtaining a cover license. Whew, this is an information-heavy show, isn't it? But I hope it's all making sense to you. If it is, hit the thumbs up button. If it's not, thumbs down. But leave me a comment and tell me why it's not. Or ask your question. Or you don't have to give a thumbs down, but it's your prerogative. We're going to have a quick drink. And then we're going to continue on. Let's talk about the evil step-cousins of copyright claims, and that are copyright strikes. Why are copyright strikes so bad? Well, for the reason that they sound. Nothing that says strike sounds good, does it? 3 strikes and you're out. And yeah, guess what? It's the same on YouTube. And I know we're very YouTube focused here. We will talk about other platforms in a moment. But YouTube has probably the most robust copyright system at the moment. So that's why we're using this as kind of our example. And if you follow the rules on YouTube, sometimes it crosses over onto other platforms. Sometimes not. We'll talk about that in a minute too. So copyright strikes. I don't have any copyright strikes, and because of the way that I know you should act on YouTube, I've never received one. But I know folks who have. The easiest way to get a copyright strike is to grab a recording artist, preferably a really popular one, looking at you, the Eagles, and just uploading their song to YouTube. So it could just be you singing along into a hairbrush, along to Bad Moon Horizon, and then, you'll get a content claim. Now, if you've used the entire original recording of an original copyrighted song without permission, you are probably going to get a copyright claim. And that's not a good thing because, again, a copyright strike. That's not a good thing because your first strike, you get a warning. Your second strike, you start losing some privileges on your account, and you get you can't live stream for a month or 3 months, I believe. They've changed it a few times. And then the third strike, your channel is deleted. Yep, just gone. No, and worse than that, you can't restart a new channel using that same account for, I think, a year. It's not worth going down this. And we'll talk at the end about how you can avoid doing this. But again, the simplest way to not avoid this is to simply use no copyrighted music. YouTube have their own YouTube audio library that you can use that has a heap of music. You can use it right within YouTube. You can add it, you can download songs, you can add them in when you're doing your video editing. You can even add them in afterwards using the YouTube's built-in video editor. So there's options there. You can make your own music in GarageBand or in Bandlab, yeah. So why not create your own music? Learn how to make your own music. Just jump over to the channel and search Pete John's Bandlab on YouTube. You're going to find a heap of tutorials and videos about how you can make your own music, and you don't need to run the gauntlet of using copyrighted music. You can make your own Beyonce style track that doesn't have any original Beyonce samples in it, and you won't have to worry. I don't know why I always choose Beyonce, but anyway. So yeah, copyright strikes, not cool. You can dispute them still, like you can with copyright claims. Sometimes I've heard that people get them and they're dubious and they're not actually legitimate, and you can actually you can dispute those. But keep in mind, if the dispute goes against you, it's going to stand and you're going to get those 3 copyright strikes and you're out. So be super duper careful when it comes to using copyrighted music. Again, on the flip side of that, if you've got your content ID on things, I would suggest if you have settings on your content ID, don't put strikes on folks. It's not going to endear them to you and your music. Use claims, grab the revenue by all means, but takedown notices and copyright strikes, just not the way to go. In my personal opinion, and your opinion may vary. Feel free to share it down in the comments. But in my view, I don't care how successful an artist you are, someone else using your music, yeah, you might not love it, but guess what? As long as you're taking all the revenue for that, why wouldn't you? If you had hundreds of people using your videos, using your music, it means your music's getting exposed to more people, and then you can take all the revenue. Like, I don't understand these bands that are like, no, only people can listen to our music on our channel. We're gonna own everything, and it's like you're gonna price yourself out of the market. People are not going to go finding you, and when they do, they're going to be like me, and they're going to know the bands that do this stuff, and they're not going to listen to them anymore because they don't like the way they manage themselves. Anyway, let's talk about everyone's favorite get out of jail free card. Johns, what about fair use? Oh, it's fair use. I'm using it for fair use. I'm fair and I'm using it. It's fair use. What the heck is fair use? Fair use is not, as many people think, a get out of jail free card. It is not you can use 3 seconds or 5 seconds or 10 seconds of anything and no one can come at you. No, guess what? You use 1 second of a song. Technically, you are in breach of copyright. You are using copyrighted content. And fair use is simply a legal principle that says, and I'm not going to get the detail because I'm not going to look it up, but you can go and look it up if you like. But it's basically saying that you can use it. If you're using it for things like commentary, if you're adding additional work to it, so you're doing a reaction to it, or it's a parody, then you can use that within fair use. So the difference is, if I just play Hotel California end to end and do nothing with it, there's no way I'm using fair use. If I play Hotel California, so think Rick Beato, he's kind of the master of this stuff and has many views on copyright. You can go and check out Rick's videos. But if you are playing a song, you're like, what makes this song great? You're playing a chunk of the song, you're saying, did you hear how that 7th chord resolved into the major at the end of that verse? Well then, yeah, you're actually doing commentary, and you can say quite clearly, this is fair use. You know the problem with fair use? It's not just a button that you can press that says fair use. It's a legal principle. And you know what legal principles are? Blurry and grey. It's not black and white. That's why people say, oh, it's 3 seconds, it's 5 seconds. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's to do with you being able to prove that you are actually creating original content and you are fairly using the other copyrighted content as a way of creating something new. You're not just regurgitating it. You're not just rehashing it. You're creating something new. And that's tough to do. And guess what? You know who has a lot more money between an independent YouTube video creator and a record label? Generally, yeah. So unless you want to go and hire yourself a team of lawyers and spend a lot of time in court trying to prove fair use, Yeah, I don't mean to again to be a downer, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for you to prove fair use. Now, if it's a small isolated case, you get one copyright strike or claim, and you're like, hey, it was fair use. I just used a 10-second clip of this, and it was to prove a point and to talk about the song structure. You might be able to put a dispute in, and it might get through, but it might not. And if it doesn't, you're going to have that copyright strike on you, and yeah, it's you need to engage some lawyers and spend a lot of money to try and save it. Is it right? Should the little guy always lose when it comes to this sort of stuff? No, of course not. But is it reality in a market that's based on capitalism? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, unfortunately, if Pete was in control, it would be a free for all. Everyone would just be sampling and remixing everyone else's tracks, and we'd all be sitting around singing Kumbaya because hippie Pete would have come to the rescue. Alrighty, so that's your fair use. What about Facebook and Instagram? Don't get me started on Facebook and Instagram. So, Facebook and Instagram, because they're the same company, they're all owned by Meta these days, which is very meta. They have a very different system. So they don't have a content ID system, which means that they don't have the whole copyright strike thing. So you generally won't get yourself in trouble for doing a cover song or for using music that is, licensed, but it'll usually just get your video completely blocked or taken down. So for that reason, I've stopped doing, especially Your Music Live, because I'm playing other people's music. And again, on YouTube, 100% fine. The YouTube Content ID system works 99.9% of the time, and I just get those copyright claims, and any revenue goes to those artists. Everyone's happy. On Facebook, I run that same show, and it's like, you're using this song. It was licensed through CD Baby by this artist. We're going to block that entire show. Or at best, it's going to mute out and silence like giant chunks of the content where I'm using those songs. So I haven't had specific luck with Facebook and with Instagram. The other thing is that Facebook and Instagram have their own built-in audio options. So you would have noticed that when you're doing Instagram, similar to things like TikTok, we'll talk about in a moment, you could actually use the audio that's in there. So they have licensing agreements. So if you release your music through DistroKid, it'll go onto Instagram. And then if people use that in their Instagrams, you're basically giving that ability to do that, but you get paid those royalties back for any advertising run against that video. Similar sort of thing, right? To playing it on Spotify or to playing it on YouTube or playing it on Apple Music, except it's being used as part of a video on Instagram. Same with Facebook. Again, the amount you're going to get paid in revenue is not going to be great. So it's one way to share your music on those platforms. But as a creator, if you're using music, that's a problem. And here's the other reason that I recommend not going down the content ID route is that it's going to make it more likely that you're going to get your own music pulled down. We've had more than one case of people who have released their music through someone like CD Baby or TuneCore. They then go and upload that song to Facebook or to Instagram separately. They own the copyright. They are the copyright holder. But because of the automated systems, it flags it as copyrighted content and they get their own song taken down. It's sad, but it happens. So it's why I recommend not going down the road of whole content ID thing, because in my experience, it doesn't add value and it just adds complexity. Now, it can still do that. So I've had songs that I haven't got content ID on. I've just released through DistroKid. I use them on Facebook and I get myself blocked for my own song. So I just steer clear of those. I tend to use Facebook and Instagram more for sharing photos, sharing stories, doing original content like this video. So this video would be fine on Facebook because I'm not playing music. I'm not actually doing that. I'm just talking about stuff. And I don't think anyone owns the copyright to me, my opinions, and my voice. Not yet anyway. Maybe in the future. Maybe one day. What about others? What about Twitch, TikTok, and others? Well, yeah, they all have their own similar proprietary formats. And while YouTube, I don't want to don't hear what I'm not saying here. YouTube ain't perfect. YouTube is not, it doesn't smell like roses while the others smell like poop. But YouTube has a system. It's trying to do something that's actually helpful to creators. Whereas these other platforms, they're in their infancy. They're really not doing a great job. So I've had similar issues with Twitch, with TikTok, with other platforms. Again, they've started making deals where you can kind of use licensed music within their own kind of walled garden. But as soon as you try and introduce some outside music, so you're gaming on Twitch and you're playing some music in the background, yeah, you can get your stream pulled down or silenced, or you can get it blocked for replay value. So it's not a great idea. Just quietly, you might want to rethink that. So it doesn't mean don't do it, but tread carefully, tread lightly in other platforms because they don't quite have their stuff together. We are on the homeward stretch here. Thanks so much for being here once again. If you have got some value out of this one, thumbs up, guns up. You can do that down in the description and leave me comments. Let me know what you thought of this, your own opinions. Like, let's turn this into a good chat. I mean, I don't mind a heated debate now and then, but be respectful. You know, people have different opinions on this stuff. Some people think that copyright is terrible and everything is terrible and everything should be completely free. Yeah, I'm along those lines. Some people think that, hey, it's capitalism. Shut it all down. Shut her down. If you own it, you own it. No one else can have rights to it. And most of us live somewhere in between those two extremes. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. And, of course, any questions that you may have. And don't forget, you can jump on over to the webpage, which is right there at studiolivetoday.com/copyright if you want to hear me rant and rave about those or dive into content ID, copyright, and other issues in more detail. A couple more topics to go here on this show. Let's talk loops and samples. So earlier in the show, I introduced you to Bandlab and their very cool sound library. So you can go to the Bandlab sounds here and you can find all sorts of sounds. And again, it's a lot of fun. You'll lose hours. That's my only concern here is if you come in here and you search the loops, because not many other platforms have a lot of metal sounds. But here, we got some metal. So you can actually play some metal riffs. Right? So there's a heap of different sounds in there. Loops and samples, however, are a slippery slope. I've already mentioned earlier, the biggest problem folks have is that they'll throw a loop in here, like I did with this acoustic guitar before, and then they'll just have that playing, that one loop playing for a significant amount of their song. Don't do that. Don't make just one loop. What you would want to do is grab another loop. So if you're going to do this, if I was going to start with this acoustic guitar, what I would want to do is I'd want to find like some drums in here as well, and I want to add them. So let's just find some random drums here, 8 bars of random drums, and stick that in there. It's probably not going to sound good because I haven't really gone to any effort, but if we now come in here and play these two things together, they're going to be slightly different, yeah? Let's take a listen. So yeah, so you've got the drum beat there to go along with it. So it just means that you're going to have a different kind of sound, yeah? It's going to improve the overall experience that you have with that. So yeah, that's an option that you do have there to try and avoid those content IDs and those copyright claims. And again, the other sorts of things that you can do is you can change things up. So why not change the key? So we can change this from G minor. What if we put it to like, we put it to D, oh, where's our minors? Down here. Put it to F minor. Well, yeah, we can adjust, we can transpose that, and Bandlab's very cool with this sort of stuff. It can transpose really easily. You can also jump into settings and change things like the BPM. So what if we change this to a faster sound, to 115 BPM? Well, that's going to speed that up, and look, we can adjust your loops. This is the cool thing about Bandlab. It'll adjust all your sounds so that now when you come in here and play this after doing that, and that's not going to line up with anyone else doing anything else. So when you're using free loops and samples, always make sure that you're doing something different so that you're not doing the same things as other folks. That's sort of one part. If you're using other samples, there's a bunch of different licensing requirements. And I did a video recently where I talked about these in more detail. So I'll link to that down in the description. But the main thing is that there is commercial licenses, there's non-commercial licenses, there's attribution licenses and Creative Commons. So if you want to be safe, make sure that it is what's called Creative Commons 0. That means there is 0 you need to do. If you're using this loop or sample, you can use it in any way you like, in any song, whether it's to be commercially released or not, and you're 100% cool. If there is attribution, it means that you may be able to use it in a commercial release, but you have to attribute it. One moment. I get all choked up about Creative Commons and licensing. Quick drink. If it is a commercial licensing, that means you just can't use it at all. So someone could give you a loop or a sample. It means you can use it for private use. You have to attribute it, but you cannot use it in your commercial releases. You can use it for educational purposes, but if you're making money, if you're releasing that song through DistroKid, you can't use it. Now, the good thing is that all of Bandlabs are completely able to be used in your song. So if you're using those Bandlab sounds, you'll be safe as long as you follow those little rules that I talked about before. Let's finish off here. What are my tips for avoiding copyright issues and content ID claims? It's as simple as this. I know this is going to sound ridiculously simple. Don't use other people's copyrighted music. Where you can, don't use loops and samples. I know, it's fun, it's cool. Let's sample other people's things. Let's download beats from YouTube. Let's grab a sample from that favorite song and throw it in yours. But if you do, you're running the gauntlet. You're on that slippery slope of copyright that you may not want to be doing. However, you do you, boo. So if you want to take, there's a little bit of risk involved. But if you are doing it, just keep those few things in mind. Don't ever use just one loop or sound. Make sure you're customizing it to make it your own. Make sure you've got at least some original content in there. So even if you are using a bunch of loops, even if you are using Bandlab and you've created a cool groove here, do some beatboxing over the top. Sample yourself and make a cool drum beat out of you going oop, oop, oop. Go out and do some found sound. Get some bird sounds out down by the creek. Do whatever you can do to make it your own, because the reason that we have copyright and the reason that we create music is originality in its most part. Anyone can grab loops and just stick them together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Anyone can do a jigsaw puzzle. It takes an artist to paint a portrait. So if you want to use loops and samples, do use them, but use them in a creative way. And there's plenty of ways that you can do that. We've got heaps of videos here on the channel about using loops and samples and getting things together. But yeah, for the most part, you're not going to have any problems if you steer clear of copyrighted music. But if you want to do cover songs and if you want to do that sort of thing, yeah, hopefully this has explained all of the ins and outs, all of the potential pitfalls, all of the other things that you need to keep in mind. Thanks again for hanging out with me. Huge thanks to our sponsors, Bandlab. They are super cool. You can check them out at the link up the top there or down in the description. Join for free. Follow me. Keep up to date with all the cool things that I'm doing on Bandlab, because we've got a heap of new Bandlab videos coming up over the next few weeks. Even some short videos I'm doing with this little sucker here. Yeah, with my iPod Touch, which should be a lot of fun. If you're watching this on the live premiere, we've probably got Mike over at Creative Source coming up next with Fix My Mix. Do jump on over there. I'm probably in the chat right now, linking to that one, assuming that Mike's doing his regular show at the regular time slot this week. That is going to do it for me. Make sure you leave any comments or any questions down in the comment section below. All the links to everything that you need to keep in touch and stay up to date with all of the information here on Studio Live today is there as well. And until next week, where we've got the wonderful Ricky T. Brown on this show, please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, keep creating, and I'll see you next time here on the Creator Town Hall.